feeling stuck or when they're spinning, when they feel like nothing is working, they come to us. And we have a very unique, proven, science-based framework that utilizes our neuroscience, our own neurobiology, and our own innate intelligence to create calm and certainty and simplicity and clarity. And when we are in those states, we can become unstoppable. So what I want to share with you today is I want to share some foundational concepts with you, okay? We will get to some very tangible, practical applications, but the most important thing is to understand these foundational underpinnings of mindset and mindset shifting that I want to share with you. That's what's going to help you the most. Some of it may be foreign to you right now. Some of it may be familiar, but your best recourse right now is to stay willing and open. If your brain starts throwing out a bunch of what I call yeah buts, yeah, but just gently make note and still stay present to what I'm sharing. I believe that will be of how you can be served best. So a little bit of context. As I mentioned, I became a master at navigating the unexpected moment now a couple of decades ago when I was told I had a terminal disease and it was game over. And I was in my late 30s and it was not on my schedule. And I was too busy to die, as I told the doctor. So everything that I've learned and everything that I'm sharing came from that moment. I realized in that moment that I was not present. And I also realized in that moment that I had not lived life. I had achieved, but I had not lived. And when we start to live from a place of fulfillment, which you can do in any environment, you will transform your life and you will transform the lives of others around you. Can this apply to business? Yes. So I founded, built, and led 2 multi-million-dollar businesses. I borrowed $5,000 from my parents and they turned into multi-million-dollar businesses. And I led those companies through the dot-com crisis, through 9/11, and through the 2008 financial crisis with great success. And then I opened Vista Caballo with my husband and our co-founder in 2005. And these principles that I'm about to teach you has now had us hailed as one of the most innovative human and leadership development frameworks in the world. So you're about to get some really good foundational practices. And as Jordan mentioned, we are an award-winning international personal and leadership development center for conscious leaders. That's you, right? That's you. Thank you for being conscious. And thank you for being great. And we really need you right now. So we work with people like yourself whose purpose it is to drive and lead positive change on our planet. So like I say, we need you right now. And what we do is we equip you and we help you develop when you're ready to take that action. We've got a framework that you can take yourself and your teams through that will lead you into a new zone, okay? Out of the comfort zone, because it's not going to help us staying here, right? We have to get out of the comfort zone. We have to get into it. And I'm going to talk about what that new zone is here in just a second. So we have been very fortunate to be recognized as best for the world for the last 5 consecutive years. We did not do that on purpose. We just lead with these principles, and we're part of B Corp, which has really appreciated how we've led that. So we're talking about thriving through crisis. Is it possible? The answer is yes. And here's how we're going to start. So the first thing you have to understand is, let's see where we are now, right? So if we're in a, which mindset are we in? Are we in a surviving mindset? Right, so here are some of the traits of survival. Scarcity oriented, so you're oriented towards scarcity. Reactive, competitive, operating in parts and boxes, following a playbook or desperately trying to hold on to one, and fear-based. Right, that's a little bit about the surviving mindset. Versus thriving. A thriving mindset is prosperity oriented, responsive, collaborative, sees the whole picture, uses the creative tension between vision, new reality, and the current reality. And it's based in love. So just an example, a tiny example, is that Jordan reached out to me to ask me how Good Business Colorado could help us. And in that moment, I said, well, we're good, we're fine, right? We're good right now. How can we help everybody? And we started collaborating, and this webinar came out of it. That's a thriving mindset, right? So the main difference between surviving and thriving is a mindset. And for those of you that are not ready for this type of accountability, it's going to be a little challenging. You can stay with it. I encourage you to stay with it, and we'll help you through it. And for those of you that love accountability, you're going to love this, because that's all it is. It's a mindset. You decide. So in these times where many of us feel like we don't have any control over a lot of things, you actually do have control over the one thing that foundationally can shift everything for you, and it's your mindset. So let's get into this a little bit and, talk about some specifics. First, track yourself. Just for a moment, take a look here and track yourself. You may have thought you were in a surviving mindset, but actually you may be more in a thriving mindset. It's easy for us sometimes to get what they call affect contagion. So when everyone else is running around scared, sometimes we can do that as well when we actually don't feel it. So I want you to check with yourself right now. You may be somewhere in the middle of the two, or you may be distinctly in one or the other. And that's okay. If you're in scarcity mindset, if you're in that surviving mindset, we're going to move you forward. If you're in thriving mindset, we're going to move you to your next level. Okay? All right, so let's get into specifics here. 5 constructs for becoming unstoppable. So I mentioned a zone that's outside of the comfort zone, and we call this here at Vista Caballo, we call it the unstoppable zone. It's a thriving mindset. And so the first thing that you're invited to do is to say goodbye to your comfort zone and say hello to the unstoppable zone. And here's a little bit about it. So our brains are a survival organ, right? They are wired to keep us safe. They have 2 filters. That's all. Safe and not safe. And then we add to those filters through our life experience. And then we can become trapped in our own self-constructed safety zone that may have nothing to do with reality. So a lot of times we find we're actually much more brave than we think we are, right? If there's something that's going on like now, right? Are you leaping into the fray to see how you can help? That's an example of where your filters are basically showing you a different reality than maybe what your comfort zone is saying. When we are thrust into unprecedented times, we can often make decisions to maintain our mental construct, our mental status quo, rather than innovate. That's just a habit. right? So you can have some real awareness there. So you have your comfort zone, and that's how our brain keeps us wired to keep us safe. And all it is a mental construct. It doesn't necessarily mean it's reality. So how do we test this, right? How do we see where we are? Well, I like to start with the premise that living life starts at the edge of the comfort zone. I learned this firsthand. It really does. There really is a whole other life outside of your comfort zone, I assure you. And it's amazing. When you start to interact with life without your comfort zone, it's incredible. It's an extraordinary experience. So I want you to ask yourself, when you think about your comfort zone and maybe wanting to stay there, or maybe wanting to get back there. I've heard a lot of people say, I just want things back to normal. Ask yourself, is your desire for that comfort fueled by fear? And if so, you have a choice. It can be fueled by love, the love of life. And you do have to be brave. You do have to be courageous. But you can elevate your thinking, you can reframe it, and you can step out of that comfort zone. And a way to do this is to become aware of something called your anxiety sweet spot. Now, this is a state that a lot of top performers and top athletes know about, and they know how to channel the energy in that sweet spot. So our body has only 3 responses to anxiety, which is rooted in fear: fight, flight, and freeze. So if we can channel that energy, we can use it to take us to the next level, okay? So I want you, if you're starting to feel anxious about anything, it doesn't matter, recognize that there's an opportunity to actually open that channel up and use it to take you to your next level. And this is how you can do it in a very tangible way. Every day, if you take 1 step out of your comfort zone, just 1, and as you leave your comfort zone, acknowledge that you've left it. Every day, 1 step out of your comfort zone and acknowledge that you've left it, and notice how you feel. And you just breathe and notice how you feel. Okay? And you're going to start expanding your neurobiology. All right? And then in a few days, it doesn't take longer than a few days, you can then say, I've actually outgrown that old comfort zone. Now you're in the unstoppable zone. All right? Second construct that you can invite yourself to is to make yourself and the present moment the safe zone. Right? All of us want our safety back, right? We want our world to be safe again. And here's how we get it. Right? This is what we can do in the moment for this moment. We make ourselves the safe zone. This should be the safest place in the world for you to be. Right here. And in this moment needs to be the safest place that you can put yourself. And here's why. So when we prioritize making being present a daily practice, it allows us to become aware of our thoughts and if they're beneficial or not. Are we in the past or are we in the future? We are in charge of our thoughts and we can change them. Our thoughts are what informs our decisions and our actions, which determine our success. If you are thinking about the past and how it was and how our company was, and how my job was and how everything was, you are not helping yourself. We are no longer there. And if you are trying to gallop ahead to the future because it's too uncomfortable to feel what you're feeling right now, you're also not helping yourself because we don't know what's going to happen. We didn't know that this was going to happen. So use your energy and your mental power for here, for now. This is what will create the future that you want to now live in. Okay? So I had the great pleasure of working with Jostein Solheim, who is the former CEO of Ben& Jerry's. And he gave me this as feedback about what he learned about this very principle that I'm teaching you right now. He said, when you're fully present and focused in the moment, it allows you to develop your own inner resources, build your own tolerance, your own openness to ideas, and your own thinking methodologies. All right? That's why this is important. So here's another tangible way for you to start to practice this presence. And, many of you may already be meditators and stuff. I still have to work on that. So this is my personal practice that I do to help me learn how to keep my mind present. So what I do is I pick a word. You can also pick an image, but a word works better for me that's sacred to me. And then I set my timer for 1 minute. That's all, just 1 minute. And I just focus on that word. And if I notice my mind starting to wander, like I'm thinking about the word, and all of a sudden, I don't know where I am. I'm not on my word anymore. I'm thinking about all kinds of things. So what I do then is I just gently bring my mind back to that word. And I just focus on that word. And you just do that for 1 minute. And that will help you. Okay? The third construct, stop feeling like a fraud. Find your edge. So this is really, really important, and it's not something that's talked about out loud a lot. But as leaders, if we're not in the practice of clearing our mental filters, those filters of safe or what's not safe, then our interpretation of what's safe and not safe can get skewed. And as leaders, we're supposed to be leading others forward to better, safer environments. But if we don't know how to do this for ourselves, we can't do this for anyone else. And then we start feeling like a fraud. So in these unprecedented times, right? If I don't know how to go outside of my comfort zone, how am I supposed to lead anybody else there? And then, of course, we start to cover it up. And then we start to feel more anxious. And now we've created a self-perpetuating cycle, right? This can destroy your inner confidence. It can destroy your thriving mindset. So here's how you do it. You need to discover where your edge is. And it's really simple. When you get to the edge of your comfort zone, and you'll know it because you start to tighten up, you start to justify things, you'll start to go into your head and all your mental constructs, you're at the edge of your comfort zone. Great. Just notice it now. Notice it. And then back up. Notice if you react and how you react. And back up. Right? And that, what we call is the imposter syndrome, will vanish. Because what you're doing is you're listening to yourself. You can then learn, okay, there's my edge. What do I need to do to lead myself across the edge? And when you do that, your confidence level will soar, right? You will start to send out a different message to your team, right? 90% of our communication is nonverbal. So people around you will all of a sudden feel that confidence, and you'll be able to lead them forward. So it's not something that is usually talked about, but it's definitely something that's prevalent in leaders. So I wanted to make sure that we called it out. All right, our fourth construct, curious is better than serious. If you are not curious, you are not thriving, my friends. So I'm not saying that these are not somber times. I'm not saying that these are not serious times. They are, very much so. But we are born with something that was wired into us for times just like these, because otherwise we would just have stayed in the cave and never gone out, and we probably wouldn't be here right now. All right? So again, I want you to develop your natural curiosity. It is natural in us. And I want, if you're already a naturally curious person, fantastic. Dial it up. If you're not, I want you to start to learn how to be a curious person. and I want you to use it. So as adults, what happens is we get these mental blinders on, we get really focused on where we're going, and we don't take time to sit down and just wonder. And we should, right? So another, I think, person that created an extraordinary reality in our planet is Yvon Chouinard, who's the founder of Patagonia. And he said, uncurious people do not lead examined lives. They cannot see causes that lie deeper than the surface. And this is where we want to go right now. A lot of us have a lot of time with ourselves right now. Use some of it to become curious, right? Curiosity is wired into us so that we can thrive. And research shows that increases our innovation, will make fewer decision-making errors, and will perform better. So, curiosity is linked to play. And I know it may seem outrageous that I'm talking about this right now, but I really want you to invite yourself to play for at least 1 minute a day. And you can do this any way you want. You can go swing on a swing, you can play with Legos, or one of my favorite things to do is I like to take myself on a mental vacation. I was just in Bora Bora the other day. It was fantastic, right? So the brain actually does not recognize, if I showed you a picture of a spider and I showed you a real spider, your brain would actually react the same way. So I want you to imagine, I want you to play, I want you to open up your mind and give yourself some respite for 1 minute a day. Okay? And last, but by no means least, a fifth construct that you can play with a little bit is please do not tie your self-worth to your job. That's not who you are. Who you are is right here in this great heart of yours. That's who you are. Okay? And as things change, it's really important that you know this. There's a thing called work role centrality, and that's when you identify with your work, and that is the priority, which means that if your work changes, then your identity can kind of fall apart. And now you can be even more anxious, and it can feel like you've lost your purpose in life, and we cannot have that. So you have to recognize that, and if this is not where you are, if you've got yourself in really good balance, please recognize that it may be happening to people all around you, and they don't even know that this is why, right? So don't rely on your job for your self-worth. I really want you to adopt a thriving mindset, and if you can make the switch to fulfillment, personal fulfillment as your modus operandi. Personal fulfillment. As leaders, usually we're giving so much out there, we're not really thinking about ourselves. And so this is an easy way for you to do this. If you don't know what your core value is, find it. And for, again, 1 minute a day, I want you to play with your core value in some way that's not related to work. This is a great family building exercise. It's a great team building exercise that allows people to bond without having to bond over a task. So really, really think about it. And if you don't know how to find your core value, it's really simple. You can start with 5 things that are most important to you in your life, and then narrow it down to 3, and then narrow it down to 1. I don't like, to really use this adage of the one thing that you would fall on your sword for, but I'm sure there's a positive way to say that, right? But the one thing that, is a non-negotiable for you. Mine is truth. Absolutely non-negotiable. So there are some very basic constructs. I want you to take a look at them just for a minute. Take a look. See if there's any one that you feel like you could really use some development work in, just take a look, just make a decision about it and say, this is the one that I'm going to start practicing right away. And I want you to remember that thriving, the thriving mindset is what sets unstoppable leaders apart from top level leaders. Thriving companies aren't created by those who follow convention. And none of you do. I know you don't. You wouldn't be on this call if you did, right? Thriving companies are formed by unstoppable leaders who are emboldened to change the world. And these are some really simple steps. Again, so many times people, when they start our work, they're like, but it's so simple. It is so simple. Yes, it is. It actually doesn't have to be hard. So I want you to give that to yourself, okay? And then remember that we're all susceptible to blind spots. It's part of our human makeup. So initially, this may not be comfortable, and it may seem very challenging to examine ourselves through this self-honesty lens, especially if we've let our egos go unchecked when we're on the road to achievement, which happens, it's okay. But you've already done the first toughest step. You've become aware. You're aware now. And that's the toughest step, right? And we've created some amazing, incredible tools to help you open up any one of these other steps, right? Once you start thinking differently and consciously, you can learn who you really are, and you can unlock the experience of your best life. In these times? Yes, in these times. Right here, right now, yes. I know this. I've done it. That's why I wanted to share this with you. So, I know that was quite a lot, and we're just going to take a moment now. I know many of you sent in some wonderful questions. If I did not address them specifically enough for you in what I presented, no worries. Just put it in the chat. Jordan's going to help us navigate through that. And we'll just have a few minutes for some Q&A, and then we'll wrap up.
Thank you, Lisa. So if folks want to type any questions in the chat box, or if you all would want to use your voice, happy to allow folks to unmute if you think that would be a better way to ask your question, and we welcome them.
I'm going to ask one.
So,
hi. I thought it was awesome. I mean, it definitely was something that I feel like I could take away and start to utilize. But I'm wondering, is this something that you practice like every day? Is it like a daily type of mantra that you work on, or is this something now that's so ingrained that it's automatic?
That's a really great question. So the answer is yes and yes, right? And here's the reason why. So it actually takes 252 days for brain plasticity to kick in. So that's about 8 months, just so you know. So if you're going to do a practice or a habit, there's actually an incredible video. I can't remember the name of it, but it's not backwards cycling, but a guy actually learned how to ride a bicycle with the handlebars backwards. He learned how to ride that, but after 8 months, he then couldn't ride the bicycle the usual way. So brain plasticity is real. So yes, practice every day. For example, I set my intention every morning. And when I don't, my day tends to go a little skew. So for each one of these practices, you know, staying present, for example, when I start, I reach a certain level of presence. And then what I find is that there's the next level. there's the next deeper level of presence. So the answer is yes and yes, right? Curiosity. One of our tools is a tool that helps you identify how you make decisions when you're outside of your comfort zone, and what thinking style you actually don't use when you're outside of your comfort zone, that if you did, would change your mental lens, would open your mental lens so that you could see different solutions. And mine just happened to be curiosity. So I still practice it every day. I still study it. I practice it. As soon as I reach for it, it calms everything down. When I forget to reach for it, again, like I say, this was it felt like a tsunami hitting, right? So even though I've been in it for 2.5 years, my initial immediate knee-jerk reaction was not to be curious. Now, I caught it pretty quickly, probably within a few seconds was I able to say, I just need to stay curious. When I first started it, I didn't catch it that quickly. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. Great question.
I have a question, if that's okay, Jordan, to ask. So Lisa, I pair it with what Lynn said. I absolutely loved. I thought everything is relevant and it resonates with me tremendously. I do have a question about the part about play, trying to incorporate that little moment of play. Could you give us an example of how you do use your core value to play with that? Because that's just kind of something I've never thought of before.
Right. Okay. Again, great question. So first of all, let's remember when you were little kids. There might be some little kids on the Zoom call. I can't see you all. So if you are, just stay there. But the little kid inside each of us, right? Remember how, a blanket could be a cape and a broom could be a sword and the pillows could be a fort. And what you're really doing there is you're simulating a situation. So we're actually practicing as kids how am I in this moment? How does it feel? And animals do the same thing. So if you understand the concept of play, this will be easier, right? It's a simulation. It's how would I do this? So in other words, truth for me. So how I play with this is in a thriving mindset. So the truth is that things are now different, right? All the plans and I had a great spring set up. We had people flying in from all over the world, right? We had groups set up, right? Okay, that's all changed. So the truth, that's the truth. That is the truth. Everything is different. And the truth is, I also know myself in this moment for this moment. And the truth is, I also know that all the information I need is in this moment. And the truth is that when I'm present to that, I can hear that. So that when my friend Jordan calls me, I'm not just hearing wah, 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 wah. I'm hearing, are you okay? And I'm like, okay, the truth is I am. I am okay. We are okay. Right now in this moment, we are. How can we help? Truth is, we're okay, which allows me then to say, can I help you? Well, what do you have in mind? I don't know. What does everybody need? This is how I play with the truth. When I'm short with my husband in these times, the truth is that I could make an excuse about it. But the truth is, for myself, that I'm just going to recognize that I guess I was just a little stressed out there. And I'm going to go tell him that truth. Honey, I was just a little stressed out. I'm really sorry about that. Right? This is how I play with my truth. I just play with it everywhere. So what's your core value? Do you know?
Well, I guess I would go through the practice that you described to really find it, because I guess thinking about truth is something that hasn't ever occurred to me as the core value for me. But you know, I definitely feel the helper in me is very prominent right now. So I might have to discover that a little bit more. But
Perfect.
I love the way that you've described how we can look for that, and yeah, it makes total sense to me. This has been wonderful, Lisa. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. You know, here's the other way to use it is when you are at your edge. You know, I talked about your edge, right? You now have something to do at your edge. You don't have to worry about your edge, right? Because you want to discover it, right? Most of us don't want to discover it. We don't want to think about not, you know, like, I don't want to have an edge. No, have an edge, because then you can expand it, right?
Yeah.
You can make the whole, right? So when I get to my edge, I'm very truthful with myself. I'm really uncomfortable right about now. I really actually just want to react, and I don't have to. I actually don't have to. I can connect with the other person on the other side of this moment and know that I have no idea what they're going through either, and I can be kind. That is a truth. So that's how I play with it at my edge, right? I'm very honest with myself, how I really feel, you know, and that helps me step over it. So if you think about it, I think about my core value as like a bouncing ball, right? And I just bounce it all over the edge or I bounce it throughout my day. And that's how I play with it. It's like a mental image, and it makes it more curious than serious.
Thanks, Lisa. And it looks like we've got a question from Carol Wolf in the chat box. So what are your thoughts regarding multi-generational perspectives, behaviors, or tendencies?
Yeah. Oh, Carol, can you give me a specific? So that's a big question, and I get it, but give me something more specific, the lens that you're looking through.
I'm wondering, in this world of communication, people have different styles of receiving information
They do.
and doing something with it. So I'm wondering if you're seeing, you know, the boomers, the millennials, you know, how we interplay better and kinder. Yeah.
It's a beautiful question, and I really thank you for it. I think it's a very astute question as well. For me, I've recognized a lot of suffering in younger generations, because what is most familiar to them is now becoming the only way of communicating, and they're really missing the true interpersonal, the physical interaction. So now they're having to go out of their comfort zone that way. And so I also recognize that there's a lot of people who are not used to this technological way of interaction, and they're really suffering. You know, being in front of a computer is really trying. And I'm gonna share with you that there is also a reason for that. So there's a lot of electromagnetic frequency that comes off of our computers. I'm going to show you what's in front of mine. This is a piece of rose quartz. So I keep this in front of my computer. There's, like I say, this electromagnetic frequency that comes off of the computer, and it really impacts our bodies. And so rose quartz actually decreases that frequency, right? And so I've been suggesting to people to be very aware of that. I think we have to be aware. You know, I have an 81-year-old mother, and she, thank goodness, we learned a little bit how to use a portal before all of this, right? And then I've got a 16-year-old niece who, I don't think I'm on the text list, but I keep trying. So what's the opportunity here? And as a matter of fact, believe it or not, I see my sister. Hi, Aim. And if it's okay with you, Aim, do you have insight, because I was actually talking about her daughter, on this intergenerational communication and how we can navigate this with more kindness and more patience. Oh, and can you unmute yourself, Aim? There you go. Can you unmute?
Hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. And yeah, I think it's a really interesting time because of it. And, you know, I can only really speak from my little world here, you know, being huddled with my husband and my 16-year-old and our dog. But as Lisa said, you know, the younger generation, this is all very normal for them as far as technology. I think what it is doing, at least for their generation, is maybe it is helping their awareness around how important the personal connection really is. You know, I think maybe the conversation between, you know, parents or older generations and younger generations can maybe change now, because it seems like it was always this battle of like, oh, the young kids are always just on technology constantly. And, you know, why don't you get together with your friends? Why don't you do things, you know? And now that they are limited to just this technology and not having contact, you know, with their peers and their friends, I think there's going to be a new appreciation and awareness around that. And so I think there could be some really great things that come from that. And, you know, as far as older generations relying on this, I mean, it's, you know, it's definitely a challenge. Some people are more in tune and, you know, have more skills, but not everybody. I mean, my daughter has been doing Zoom classes for the last 3 weeks, and not, you know, even some of her teachers were challenged with the technology and, you know, how to make that work. So I think, again, we just have to take a breath and just support each other and help each other where we need it, and respect where everyone's coming from, because we're all coming from a different place. And again, I just hope it creates and opens up awareness around all of this, so we can all have a much more open conversation, and it's not so one-sided, or it's not, you know, technology versus no technology or one or the other. How do we integrate it so it works for everybody?
Oh,
I think the
love,
other, go ahead, Carol.
I love it, the togetherness and how much we are connected.
Yeah.
And just staying home with our dogs teaches
Yeah.
us humility,
Yeah,
doesn't it? They know how to be calm. Yeah,
exactly. They're
right.
teaching us.
They are. And they don't even talk. Right.
Well, maybe not our language, but they definitely communicate.
Yes,
I
they
think-
do.
I think this is the other point that you brought up, Carol, that I just want to highlight, is that it is about communication. And to your point, communication is information, but it's also connection. That's what makes up communication: information and connection. So if we're connected, we can communicate. And then we just have to understand that different people communicate through different portals. Some are audio, some are visual, some are kinesthetic. And so one of the things that you can do is learn each other's communication styles, right? And it simply is, you know, so how do you learn? You know, I'm a visual learner, right? And that can really help with the communication and the connection. And then the main part of that is the connection piece. So are we connected? We can connect non-verbally with each other. We can do things, and you can do this with your family, you can do it with yourself, you can do it with your teams, where you can just bring yourself to presence. And even if people wiggle around and say, oh, it's weird, it's all right. Get yourself into your heart and ask yourself one question: what is important? If you want to ask a second question, what do I need? Okay, and if you ask yourself this, and then you ask your teams this, you ask your families this, you'll start to form that connection. Then you can use the different communication channels, and you just experiment with it. Again, stay curious. Don't be afraid to experiment, right? You know, when I found out that my niece was on Instagram, I'm like, oh, I don't know how to use that. So I had to learn. You know, well, I'm still not connected with her on Instagram, but I'm determined, right? So you can have fun with it.
Thank you.
Does that help? You're welcome.
Yes,
We just
excellent.
we have a few more minutes, so maybe just one if there's any other questions. And here's the other
Looks like we
thing.
do have
I
an-
will answer everybody's question, okay? So if we haven't gotten to you, or if you want to think about it, and then you have a question, I'm going to show you, we'll put up a slide here in a second. And actually, you can do that now, Cindy, if you want. And my email address is on here, okay? You can please contact me. There's different ways that you can stay in touch. There's Instagram, there's my LinkedIn. If you get on our website and sign up for our email, I promise it's not because I'm trying to build my email list. It's because we're putting out microdoses of information, and they're science-based, right? So I want to make sure that whatever information we put out, it's something tangible for you to use. So that's my best way to get it to you, all right? So Jordan, was there any other questions?
Yeah, it looks like we do have another question in the chat box, Lisa. So first, thank you so much for your insights. How do we best become aware of our blind spots? It seems the animals are the ultimate in being in the present moment.
Yeah, I know. It's such a great question. So one, whoever asked that, I'm giving you kudos for wanting to know that, right? I mean, for me, it's like I'd much prefer to know my own blind spot first, because blind spots are, everyone else sees our blind spots except us. So it's a great question. Again, we have a tool that was specifically designed for that. So that is an option for you. The other thing you can do, and it can take some courage, but it can also be a wonderful, loving, bonding experience. I would do it with someone that you trust implicitly, that has no agenda. I would ask them, do you see that I have a blind spot? And then you have to listen. You have to be completely receptive and not have any yeah buts of your own, all right? Just take it in. And even if you don't understand what they say at first, just take it in and be with it. I remember it was kind of strange, because a lot of times we think blind spots are going to be negative. But when I first did this, I did it with two friends that I really trusted. And they said, yeah, you definitely have a blind spot. And I said, okay, what is, I'm bracing myself. And I'm like, okay, what is it? Because I want to be my best. And they said, you don't realize how courageous you are. So I did what I'm telling you to do. I just sort of sat with that. I wanted to argue, right? Because, it was going through my mind as well, how's that going to help me, right? But when we don't recognize all of ourselves, like now knowing that, because now I actually can acknowledge that. It took me a while. But now I'm like, wait a minute, I'm courageous. I can get out there. I can help. And so that's why it's important for us to acknowledge that. As super achievers, a lot of times we downplay that, right? And there's a particular bias around that. But actually, if we can flip that around, right, and start to lead with that, one, our self-fulfillment will surge, right? And then you will transmit that out. And two, you can really use that aspect of your life to meet life in a completely different way, right? And those two parts will form a whole. Does that help?
Great, thank you for that, Lisa. We did actually have one more question pop up in the chat box. It looks like we have about 6 minutes left.
Okay.
And this comes from Karen Moldovan, our policy director here at Good Business Colorado. Since you mentioned leading companies through 9/11 and the recession in 2008, Karen is curious about your experience and tips for building teams through crisis. Especially in the context of many of our members and folks. Sorry for that noise. have had to lay off or maybe furlough some of their team members. And so, yeah, talk a little bit maybe about that experience of helping to build teams through this crisis.
Okay, great question. And I'll try and keep it brief. But again, if there's more that I didn't answer, just email me, all right? So one, your teams are really smart, right? It's why you hired them. So one of the things that I learned, and I actually learned this in the .com bust, was I went to my teams. I looked out on the horizon. I said, look, I've got a couple months that we can cover you. And so for sure, since we don't know what's going to happen. So I want you to take this time. We're going to pay you for it. And I want you to go find secure jobs. And they all looked at me like I was crazy. And they said, well, what if we don't want to do that? I was like, why would you not want to do that? And they're like, because we love it here. And what if we can figure out a different way? And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, right? Because as a leader, I thought I was supposed to figure everything out. And they did. We made it through that because they came up with new strategies, new ideas, new approaches, and that's how we got through it, right? So go to your teams, empower your teams. The other thing, like with 9/11, and again, I'm so glad my sister is here with me because she was my business partner at the time, and we got together and we made a commitment. We made a decision, and our decision is, one, we are going to make it through this, and two, we're going to make it through this better than we ever have before. We're going to hold to our core values. We're not going to forget who we are. We're going to maintain our standards of excellence. And this is how we're going to get through. And we did. And there were huge companies going under all around us. We were a very boutique firm. And we did. We treated everybody with kindness and respect and dignity and support. And we listened. And that's how we did it. So we are going to come through this, and it may look very different, but what you want to do is have a conversation with your team about what does it look like on the other side? What do we look like on the other side? Do we want to be proud of ourselves? Do we want to say we took ourselves to our next highest level? We catalyzed this, we leveraged this, and we brought ourselves to our next best level of humanity? So I would say bring your teams in, include them, ask them those two questions. What is important to you? What do you need? You want to add in a third question? What's your core value? Let's start leading from it. When you do the core value exercise as a team, it's absolutely incredible. Once we had our 5 core values in our company, we pretty much did everything to it. We hired to it, we let people go to it. We articulated clients through it. I mean, it's a fail-safe. Does that help? Do any one of the exercises, Karen. Do your 1 minute together. Do your 1 minute presence. Do your 1 minute sacred word. Do your 1 minute mental vacations together. And then ask where everybody went.
Great. Thank you so very much for that, Lisa. So we've got about 2 minutes left. If there are any final questions, or Lisa, if there's anything that you would like to maybe say to close us out, we'd certainly appreciate that.
Yeah, and I do see a bunch of questions or comments in the chat. So Jordan, I'd love to read those afterwards. But here's what I want you to do. So one, I have a saying that I want to share with you. It's from Rumi. I love Rumi. And I just love this. I think it's so fitting. He says, do not worry that your life is turning upside down. How do you know that the side that you're used to is better than the one to come? Right? I think about cocoons hanging off of a tree, right? Or a bat. I mean, it looks to us like they're hanging upside down, right? So really think about that. Why can't it be better? Before change, there is always chaos. So with this much chaos, it must mean tremendous change, and it's up to every single one of us to make sure that that change is positive, starting with ourselves right here, right now. Okay? I put up 3 steps here. First step, imagine being unstoppable. Imagine. Take another one of your minutes and imagine that. Wouldn't that be incredible? Where would you go? What would you do? What would your impact be? Then let us equip you. We've got it. We've done it. We've spent years and years and years with scientists making it simple, making it powerful. We've got it. It's ready to use. You're the Olympians. Let us give you the right tools. Okay? And just send me an email with anything, with comments, with insights, with I want more ofs, with yes, I want to, do some work together, whatever, right? How can you help me and my teams? We are here. This is our time. I want to get you ready for when we're through this time so that you can hit the ground running. Okay? And again, I just want to thank Good Business Colorado. I want to thank my trusty right hand, Cindy, who I couldn't have done this without because I don't know how to use Zoom very well. And I just thank all of you so much, okay? And just many, many blessings to you. Stay strong, and be of good courage, okay? And I thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so very
Thank
much,
you.
Lisa. That was really amazing.
Bye.
Thank you, Lisa.
Awesome.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Jordan.
Well,
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you again.
Bye-bye.